the webinar. It is with great pleasure that I am going to be able to introduce you to two lovely ladies coming to us all the way from Australia. Melanie Briggs is a senior midwife at Waminda, an Aboriginal community-controlled health organization in New South Wales, Australia. She was the first endorsed Aboriginal midwife in New South Wales. She's a traditional birthing rights advocate for birthing on country. Melanie completed a Bachelor of Midwifery at the University of Technology in Sydney in 2007 and her graduate year at the Royal Hospital for Women in Randwick. She also holds her Master of Primary Maternity Care through Griffith University. She is Birthing on Country Project Officer at Waminda, working to assure that community practices and needs of Aboriginal women are heard and met. Cleone Wellington is a cultural manager at Waminda, a community-controlled, culturally relevant center enabling women and their Aboriginal families to receive quality health and well-being support for pregnancies and birth by providing a safe space where they feel supported and safe and where their cultural traditions are respected. Join me in welcoming Melanie and Cleone. I think you're muted. Are you muted?
Yeah, unmuted. Thank you.
Okay, unmuted. Okay.
Good morning.
So just over to us?
Yep. Okay.
Yes, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you.
So thank you, Gloria, for inviting us to be here. My name is Melanie, and thank you for that introduction. I'm a proud Darawal Gumbaynggirr descendant and live on the southeast coast of New South Wales in Australia.
Yeah, and I'm Cleone Wellington, and I'm a Kalangari Djurindjang Wandani woman, and I have my bloodlines down to Yaramtung Ngarigo land. And if you're thinking about Australia, my people within New South Wales on the eastern coast.
So before we start, we'd just like to pay our respects to our elders, those that have passed and those that are present, and pay our respects to the sacred lands that we're on today, and ensure that we tread lightly and softly on the land and ensure that our future generations can walk on this land after us. So we have a presentation here we're going to share with you.
Sorry, we're just trying to bring it up. So I just want to share our screen.
Is that sharing? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can everybody see that screen?
Should be all good.
Yes, it's working just fine.
So today we're going to have a quick chat about the discussion points will be the colonial impacts of birthing, our model of care at Waminda, our healing framework, our role as First Nations women in our community, and our birthing on country model.
So I'll just explain this next slide. So for Waminda, we're an Aboriginal women's community-controlled health organisation. So in Australia, 40 years ago was the first ACCHO, and it was the AMS Redfern. And for us, we've been established in our community now for 38 years. And across the nation, there's about 120 different ACCHOs. And an ACCHO is governed by Aboriginal people from their community. So for us, being an Aboriginal women's service, we're led by all Aboriginal women from our community. Our board of management at the moment is actually led by 7 local Aboriginal women, and they are community women, and the 6 out of the 7 are actually our aunties. So those women who have, fought the fight for our people, worked in community their whole lives, giving their passion, giving their time. And so for them, this is now being a part of the board of management. It's about them still continuing to give back to our community and still be a part of that fight for our people. So when you look at Waminda's model of care, which is the visual that's come up in front of you, like I said, we've been established for 38 years, and it's taken that 38 years for this to be developed and for this to grow. For us, being an Aboriginal women's led service, You know, one of the most important things for us is about Aboriginal ways of being, knowing and doing. Now, when you look at the circles in the visual, and it's got culture as foundation, so that's our Aboriginal ways of being, knowing and doing. That's the culture we're referring to. So we're referring to what is our practices, what's our protocols. You know, we talk about law, but we talk about LORE law, not LAW law. What's our ways pre-colonisation and still to this very day. And for us, it's very important about knowing our identity and our belonging and always being connected to who we are. We talk about walking in two worlds as Aboriginal people, and those two worlds is our cultural world, our practices, our protocols, who we know, who we are, our identity. And then the other world is that westernized world. And that's the world we've been forced to live in. And that happened through colonisation and through invasion. So for us, when you look at our model of care and you speak about Waminda, yes, we provide services to our women in community. And when you look at it, all the pretty colours, or they're called our clusters, they're all our programs that we deliver to our community. And our birthing team or midwifery group practice actually sits within that. But there's all different types of services that we provide. We provide case management, we provide NDS, we provide health and wellbeing, we've got a gym, we've got a youth space for our young women and our young men. We've got family preservation and restoration, so that's working with our welfare to keep our kids out of the system. We work in the jails through Justice Health. We work in the schools, delivering programs. We have our own garden where we're producing our own native foods. And then, so there's a whole range of things that we deliver. And then we've got our clinic with our Aboriginal health practitioners that's led. And then we've got our nurses, we've got our midwives, we've got our doctors, and we do this in outreach as well. So there's a lot within Waminda that we provide to our community. And now in saying all that, that's the services that we provide. But for us, the importance of our organisation is about that leadership and about not being apologetic, about being at the forefront, about being political. Because for us as Aboriginal people, we don't have a choice to step in and out of this space. We have to be political. We have to be at the forefront of that. And for us, it's about having a voice and privileging our voices for Aboriginal women, but then privileging that voice of our community. So for us as an organisation, you know, today's a classic example. You know, we're actually speaking to people who are international platforms. So for us, we need to use this space to educate people about what it's like for our Aboriginal people living in Australia, because there is that perception of, you know, that it's a great country and that it's, you know, that this country is very, it's like progressive, but this country is very racist, and there's a lot of racism in this country, and it stems from that. When Captain Cook first landed and he first said, you know, I'm going to claim terra nullius of this land, which was all lies. There was actually First Nations people here. There was Indigenous people, and we weren't recognised, and we're still not recognised to this day. And we're still fighting for our rights, which is similar to a lot of other Indigenous people from around the world. So for us, that's that political voice. That's us taking a stance and saying, no, you need to stop. You need to listen to us. We're the First Nations people, and you need to allow us to lead in our country and work with us. So that's what Waminda's about. And we call that our pushback as well. So we talk very much about pushback. Pushback for us is about just, again, talking about what needs to happen for our people, because we know what needs to happen, and about educating people and bringing people along on that journey. We talk about imperfect allies. Imperfect allies for us are all our non-Aboriginal people who work within our service, who we've got relationships with, who stand beside us and walk this journey with us. And so for us at Waminda, you know, when I talked about Aboriginal women-led, it's that matriarchal system. It's sort of patriarchal, but not that, what's it called? Hierarchy, sorry. So it's not the hierarchical structure. You know, what I do as an executive leader, I'll do the washing up. I'll go out and do a transport. I'll go and clean the bathroom if I need to, you know. And then, so what I do is then what I expect of all staff members. And we do that together. And when we speak about Waminda, I've been there for 14 years now. And when I first came, there was 8 to 10 staff, and now we're at 130 staff. We operated out of 1 building all those years ago. Now we have 10 to 11 buildings. We actually own 2. Yeah. 3, no, we actually own 3 different properties now. So for us, it's about that reclamation. And when you start to move through the circles, we talk about the Waminda Balang Healing Framework. Balang means woman in our language. And that's talking about wrapping around our staff, because our staff are community. 75% of that 130 identify, they work in their community, therefore they are community, and they're working with their families, they're working with people they've known their whole lives. And so for us, it can be quite heavy work. So we need to ensure that we wrap around our staff and make sure that there isn't that burnout and that they feel supported. And that also goes hand in hand with building capacity, their professional development. We have staff members who have only done tertiary, to staff members who have gone to university and done their masters and degrees and gone on to do their PhDs one day. Hey, Mel.
One day.
So yeah, so we have a range of different women who work with us, and now just in the last 6 years we've employed men. For many, many years it was just women, and then we have one maintenance worker, but now we've actually got men who work with our families in a family unit, and we only do that through one of our programs to ensure that we keep to why Waminda first came to be, which was to be a safe space for our women and to feel that they can come in and get the support that they need at whatever time. So just to quickly wrap up on this model of care, it's for us, we talk about being a decolonizing practice. So it's about flipping the narrative. It's about doing things our way for our people, so they don't feel judged, they feel safe, and they can come to us at any time in their deepest moments to when they're thriving and they're, achieving what they need to achieve. And so our knowledge holders are our elders. For us, especially, Mel and I, it's about our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, walking in their footsteps, taking up that fight, acknowledging the struggle that they've been through for us to actually be here today and for us to exist. And then when you talk about, how do we do what we do? It's that resilience, it's that restoration of power. Talking about trauma-informed, it's that intergenerational trauma, transgenerational trauma. What's the impacts of colonisation that continue to be burdened upon us through trauma, and then it's passed down from generations to generations? But what I want to add to that is, it's not only the negative that's been passed down, it's not only trauma or grief and loss, because there's a lot that we experience as Aboriginal people to this very day. But it's also that intergenerational strength, that intergenerational knowledge, wisdom, love, care, nurture. That is what has got us to the point where we're still here today. Because in Australia, I don't know if you know, there was something called the assimilation policy, where the white people who actually came to this country tried to actually breed us out, and that was their words, to assimilate us, to actually wipe out Aboriginal people. So that's that genocide. So for us, it's always important, coming from that strength space, coming from that positivity. Our people are always in a deficit in our country. There's always that negative view. We're drunks, we're alcoholics, we don't take care of our kids, we do this, we do that. It's like, well, when we're forced to live in a world which isn't built for us, it's built against us, it's really hard. And so that's why it's really, really important that we have spaces like Waminda, and we continue to grow and give what we need to our community. And I just want to end it with our 5 values that's within the model of care. So it's our culture, that respect, boldness. We talk about being staunch women. We're like that on purpose because we need to be that way. We don't have a choice. It's our accountability, collaboration, and leadership. And at the end of the day, I know that when I work at Waminda, I have a support system, I have a family, and Waminda is more than an organisation. It's a space where I feel supported, I feel loved, I feel cared for and nurtured. And I have my sisters like Mel, I have my aunties, I have these amazing women that support and wrap around me. And for us to do what we do for our community and to make change for our people, to go from surviving to thriving. So it's no longer about that, it's about our people becoming CEOs, becoming businessmen, becoming whatever they want to be, and not just being in ACCHOs where the majority of our people work, because it's a safe, culturally safe space. But yeah, that's model of care.
God, amazing.
Oh, sorry, I'll just quickly go through this. So in the circles just beforehand, this is our Waminda Balang healing framework. So our healing framework, I just talked about quickly impacts of colonisation and that grief and loss and that trauma that is continuously passed on to us and that we carry as a people. So for us, it's what's really, really important is about our healing. And so for us, when you look at this, at these different circles, and we talk about our framework and we talk about healing, needs to happen at the same time that we're still being traumatized. Now, I know that sounds, well, how does that work? It does work because we're still here now. If it didn't work, we would have been, the simulation policy would have worked, right? So for us, when we're talking about our healing as Aboriginal people, we're talking about knowing who we are. So that's our identity and our culture and our belonging. And then what is that? That is, that language, knowing our language, learning our language, revitalizing our language, passing that on to the next generation. When we're talking about our ceremonies, so going out into country, looking after the mother, which is the environment, so the mother can provide for us and we give back to mother. So it's a give and take. Our song and dance, coming together, through, sad times, sorry business, but then also through celebration. And through those times, that's when we come together and we do song and dance and we laugh and we cry and we connect. And that's where we feel that belonging. And then our family and kinship. It's so important knowing who we are and who we're connected to and who our bloodlines are. One of the first things you do as a Koori person when you meet, an Aboriginal person, the first thing you do is when you meet another Aboriginal person is you say, oh, hey, how you going? Who's your mom? Where are you from? So you always trying to find that connection with that person because our songlines is what connects us in our stories. And then spirituality for us is super, super important, and it isn't religious spirituality. It's different. It's another layer, and I can't explain that because that's going too deep into culture. And then that nurturing and that N word that's in the circle, nyali, is food. So that's our taka. That's our nutrients. And then sharing. We're a very sharing and caring people. We share a lot. Probably share too much sometimes. I think our country needs to do some more work in working with Aboriginal people to, to give us that recognition and to give us that respect as First Nations people before we share any more of our culture and for us, healing is super important, and we do that together at Waminda. We do that as staff members, we do it with our community, and we actually have our healing framework, which is embedded in our tools when we're working with our families. So our strengths-based assessment, when someone walks into the building and they want to access the council or intake services, as soon as they work with our staff members, they're actually working to this healing framework. And just one more thing I want to add, every woman who comes in our doors with her family, it's her journey, it's her story. She leads it. We just walk beside her and create a space for her to do the things that she needs to do. So now I'll shut up and hand it over to Mel.
So I'm going to talk about, as a midwife, as an Aboriginal woman, my role in community caring for Aboriginal women. And, it's a very privileged role, and it's a very, what's the word I'm trying to find? It's a big responsibility because the babies and the mothers that you're looking after is actually family, and that's the future generation. And, I feel very honoured that my elders have chosen me to be the person that cares for our mothers and babies in community. I just feel like working at an organisation like Waminda, I'm able to do that because the foundation is culture and it wraps around women and the babies. And, I have worked in mainstream services before, and the workers in that place are very powerless, and they don't have enough autonomy to work with families, whereas working in outside of the system, there is more autonomy, and we're able to provide that wraparound love and support for the mothers and the babies and the families to thrive. So my role is to make sure that all women get access to whatever it is that their needs are, before, during and after having a baby. And what Cleone was saying, it's also about being an Aboriginal midwife and pushing back on the system and saying, no, this woman is an Aboriginal woman and these are her needs, and giving and escalating her voice and providing a platform for her to speak and feel heard. And that's that's so important to be from community and to do that for our women. So did you want to add any more to that? No? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, you so, you know, we hear a lot of language and terminologies used to describe our people or to who we are, and the narrative is not right. So we just want to make that very clear, that what we do accept and what we don't accept. So if you're ever writing a paper about Aboriginal people, it's better to use terminology that we accept, because then that's, you know, that's decolonizing. You're actually looking through our lens when you're writing words that we accept. So the terminology that we do accept, we've written there is First Nations, Indigenous, Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander people. And then if you look at the different states and territories in the country, each state and territory have their own identity. And then you know, like in New South Wales, we're Kooris. In Queensland, we're Murris. In Tasmania, we're Palawa. That's just for an example. And then every other place has another name. So I think in the next one, yeah, we talk about what's not accepted. We don't like these terminologies used at all. We don't like acronyms, because we cannot lessen ourselves to an acronym. We are a peoples. We are a whole people. So when you write ACCHO, that's not acceptable. And then Aborigines, that's not cool. And then there's Black as well. So we can refer to ourselves as Black, but other people can't. And as I was saying before, so each state and territory, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah. With each state and territory in the country, so they're all white man's lines. So they're the ones that have divided each section of the country. And then in our time, pre-colonisation, the country was made up of hundreds of tribal groups, and they still exist today, and they still have names, and they still have language, and they still have culture. It's very strong and it's very rich, but you don't get to see that stuff because of the settlers. So just so you know, we are not one group, we are many. So we make up hundreds of clan groups, and we have many languages, many belief systems, and we practice our culture in all different ways. There's not one way, and there's men's business and there's women's business, and that's always separate, and it's respectful, and and it depends on where you live as well. Did you want to add any more to that?
Yeah, no. So just to give you an example, so where we live now on the eastern coast, so we make up, we call it country. So when Mel's talking about all the, you know, hundreds of different little countries, it's like countries within countries. So our country, when you think about that, we've got 13 different clans, and then in that 13 different clans, you've got 13 different dialects of language.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the hundreds. So we've got around like over 200 of those around the whole nation. Yeah.
So if you learn, so just going back to that, if you learn a language, say our language is Durga, and you learn some of the words, and then you go to another Aboriginal community and you start using Durga, they're not going to know what you're talking about. It's just like going to another country and speaking your language in their country. So that's just a FYI. So First Nations, the Aboriginal people in Australia pre-colonisation, they said in the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare report in 2021 that the population was around 320,000. I think it was more than that, but you know, that's just what white man says. So we had very sustainable ecosystems. So, you know, there was systems where, so fish traps, for instance. So we're ocean people, we live on the sea, we're saltwater women. A lot of our clans lived off the ocean, you know, collecting pippies, abalone, fish traps. You know, there's so many beautiful and wonderful things that our people did pre-colonisation and still do today, but you have to have a license and a permit to carry out law. So it's really it's an injustice to
Justice,
our
yeah.
people and our culture. So, you know, we used to travel with the seasons too, so you would know when the fish were running, and there's all these different things that we know that we were able to do when, you know, pre-colonization, to live and to thrive. Our people were very healthy. There was no such thing as diabetes then, and there was no obesity. Our people walked on the country, on the land, and fed off the land, and they didn't take more than what was needed. They took only what they needed to eat for that moment, and then they moved on. Like, it's like it was not over yeah, they didn't overdo it.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it. You want to talk about Mum?
So just women's business and grandmothers law. So, you know, you heard me earlier talk about our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, and for us, it's always acknowledging a woman's what her reason and her purpose. And I say purpose, but purpose for us is different to purpose than in English language, right? So it's not just, well, she's a woman and this is what she does. That's not what it is. It's like, this is sacred women's business. And when we talk about our grandmothers and our grandmother's law, it's about what she carries and then what she passes on to us. And then that's that practices and protocols and that bloodline, you know. And when we talk about our aunties and our elders in our community and what they are and what they represent and what they bring, that's that nurture and that's that guidance and that's that love and that care. But it's also that staunchness, it's that strength, it's that wisdom, it's that knowledge. That's what that is, that grandmother's law and keepers of women's business. We are the birthers. Women are birth. We birth men as well. So therefore, you know, we have that right and we have that authority to be in that space with our children and raise them and to be there for the rest of their lives as well, to nurture and guide. And I think that always goes back to Waminda's very existence, you know, and why we brought men into our space now, because we have that right as women, as mothers, to continue to then push back on society, this Western society, where our men, our Koori men or our Aboriginal men are lost, you know, and they've got to try and find their way. But for us as Aboriginal women, we need to fight for that and we need to push that. Yeah. And our grandmother's law then comes back to that birthing. And that's the very essence of it. Yeah. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, look, and the knowledge keepers and these women are very staunch women, and you are not allowed to do anything without their permission.
Yeah.
They give the orders. They tell us what we can and what we can't do. And if we can't do it, you just have to accept it. And there's a reason. They always tell you the reason, or you just get shown the reason.
Yeah.
It just happens organically.
So we talked a bit about that.
Yeah,
right?
we talked about that.
We can
pass
that.
Oh, so colonisation has led to, I can only see slide 4, not any further. Can you see it now, Lizzie?
Do you want to just get going?
Yeah, so, so this map shows from 1788 when the colonisers came, and this has happened over, you know, hundreds of years. These little yellow dots represent massacre sites in Australia. So the University of Newcastle has done research around massacres of Indigenous people in our country, and there has been, as you can see, there's a lot. And this is actually on the internet. You can have a look at. If you go click on the link for the University of Newcastle Colonial Massacres in Australia, you can click on it and you can actually click on the yellow dots, and then it'll show you how many Aboriginal people were killed. And it was men, women and children. So, you know, it started Sydney area, and then it just sort of rushed through the whole place like a plague. So it's sort of like, it's a interesting read, so I would highly recommend reading that, so you get an understanding of how and where the massacres occurred, and for absolutely no reason.
Yep.
So part of our pushback and part of our thriving future of generations, we have been, we are leading the space with national partners in the country on a model of care called Birthing on Country. So exactly what Cleone was talking about with the model of care and the wraparound support services and the wraparound services for staff, for the women, the culture, the programs, all of those things are a part of this massive model of care, which is called Birthing on Country. And what it is, it's about supporting the women on their pregnancy journey from an Aboriginal lens, embedding culture as part of their maternity care, to ensure that her and her baby have the best possible start to life. That embeds language, practice, health, all of those things. So we'll go on to the next slide. And this is a beautiful description of what's included in that. We have our elders and, no, the slides are not moving. It has to do with the pink.
Oh, the activate.
Oh,
damn.
What a shame. I'm sorry you can't see this. It's a beautiful, but yeah, so Birthing on Country, it's about the woman and her bingy and her burai and just
Keep going.
yeah, and then having access to her elders, her family and her kinship systems.
Yeah, no, keep going.
I need the page.
Oh, sorry.
I wish that's all right. We're just having a bit of technical. Do we have to?
No, that? This is what they can see.
Oh, they can see that. Oh, right.
So we're just trying to show you.
Can you see that one?
I hope you can see that. Cool,
Yes, yes, we can see that.
Sorry about that. You just missed all the slides.
Oh.
Ladies, that's fine. The presentation is beautiful. Listening to you is just fascinating. And perhaps you could just send send it as a file attachment, and then people can look at it as they listen to your presentation because they can view it again after.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, okay.
So Birthing on Country, it's absolutely about the women, the Aboriginal women that are leading the space and having their care provided by an Aboriginal midwife and an Aboriginal team and an organisation. Because I know that when women go to a mainstream service or a hospital to have their baby, it's not just them walking through those doors, it's the whole organisation supporting and wrapping around her. And then that's when she knows she feels safe going in there, and that if there's any issues or any problems, then she can come back to us and we will support her in that journey to raise awareness on how our women should be treated in that service. And then we've got our birthing practices and we have our birthing place. That I won't get into those, but that's part of Birthing on Country and how we practice and our culture. We do a pre-birth ceremony with our mums, and we do law in pregnancy, and then after they have a baby we also do that as well. And then wellness. So when I think about wellness, it's about my internal spirits and my ancestors and my connection to my people and my country and my children. That's what makes me well. And a lot of the women know that if their home is well and their environment is well, then they're physically going to be well as well. So you think about the social determinants of health, and it's that holistic wellness. It's that, being able to thrive and sustain and being and doing. Okay. And I did talk about elders, their role in maternity care. They like I said before, they're the they're the knowledge keepers, and they are the ones who say how things happen and where they happen and when they happen. And then there's the family and kinship system. So it's, my sister Cleone, my mother, my nieces, and all of those, they're our family and kinship systems, and they are absolutely a part of the birthing process. And I know mainstream services do not enable that to happen, but we do. And that's what makes us well and have good outcomes. So making sure that we're including not just the woman, but her support systems as well, and her holistic wellness and her family and all of those things that we just talked about. Yeah. I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Did you want to add?
No, I think just, for us as an organisation, we want to get to the point of having our own birth centre and having this, and we've been lobbying it for 7 years now. So it's taken a long time for us to even get to a point where we've got, we're going through our national election coming up. So, one of the parties has actually made a commitment to give us money to actually build the first birthing centre. There was other birth centres in Australia, but not in depth of how we're going to actually build our birth centre. So it'll be the first of its kind. So we're hoping that the election gets through and the people and Labor gets in. But for us, this is what that birth centre will deliver. We're already doing this. Yeah. The work that Mel does as a midwife with our other midwives is just amazing. That preterm birth weight, reducing that, just having healthy, chunky babies and having mums that can go at full time and don't have to go into labour early, and because of the support systems that they have wrapped around them. So we're already doing that in our organisation, but to have a space that is ours, that we can reclaim and go back to our ways of being known and doing, having a culturally safe space, not going into institutions like the hospital where we're judged, where there's racism, where there might be a report put in against us, where we can only have one person in the birth. And if we have too many, security guards are called on us to leave the building. So there's all these things that are happening for us, and for us to have our birth centre it would just, I don't know, I can't even describe how amazing it would be.
It's going to be amazing.
And it's going to be amazing, sorry. It is going to be amazing. We're going to get it. But so again, it just goes back to that reclamation, taking back, what is ours and what our rightful place is in, and what we need to do with our women and having that safe space, all the things that Mel just spoke about, and I think for us, it's, it's just about that fight, that continuous fight, and we're up for it. We're not going anywhere, and we're going to be here, and we're fighting for the rights of our women, always privileging our women's voices.
Always.
So yeah.
So that's us.
Oh, thank you so much, both of you. I have learned so much by listening to you. And do send me the presentation, and if anyone wants it, they can reach you at Waminda. Just send an email, and I'm sure they would be glad to share it to you, because I would love to see the slides that we weren't able to see. I would like to.
Would anybody like to ask any questions, or?
I'll just stop sharing the screen. Eh?
There we are.
Yeah.
All right. Another thing I'd like to mention is the documentary Birth Time. You will learn a lot more from the documentary about what they've just talked about. So I encourage everyone to watch that, and to stay tuned for the next presentation, which comes up at the top of the hour, in which you can meet Zoe Naylor, the producer and another star of Birth Time, the documentary. So if there are no questions, I just want to thank you ladies for an amazing presentation. And thank you for being with us.
No, for sure. Thanks for having us. Oh, is that? Yeah,
it says, thank you so much. And that is how we all feel. Thank you so very much.
No, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.